Hi everyone, welcome to our presentation. We are LLG3. My name is Julia D'Angelo and my teammates are Bree Pickering, Frank Piccolo, and Talicia Spate. We're going to be talking to you about Job 3, which is aligning local effort. So aligning local effort involves working with employees at all levels of the organization to implement strategy successfully. So in summary, it's the step of the strategy implementation process where the organization jumps into action. During our presentation, we're going to discuss why engaging employees is so important, especially engaging our middle managers. And it's also important for strategy implementation to make sure that everyone is on the same page. So we'll provide you with a couple of methods that we've researched as ways to execute strategy. And we'll then relate this information to our case study and demonstrate how an organization can implement the tools that we have found to make strategy implementation successful. During our case study demonstration, we'll be acting out the role of someone at a different level within the organization. So Bree will be acting as our strategy steward. Frank will be acting as our strategy leader. I'll be acting as a frontline strategist, and then Talicia will be acting as a non-managerial employee. Once we wrap up the case study, Talicia will go over a couple of key takeaways, and then we'll present a couple reflective questions to the class. So now I'm going to hand it over to Bree, and she's going to go through some background on our case study.
Thanks, Julia. Welcome to JTB Wholesale, specifically transportation. Our conundrum is that we didn't make our budget numbers. We had a goal to get a certain amount of margin this past year, and we did not hit that, in large part because our CPU process is broken. So CPU, for those of you that do not know, is customer pickup. So in the wholesale world, the manufacturer will actually pay us to pick up our own freight headed into our warehouses. And our goal is to move that freight for less than they pay us and thus pocket the difference or have a margin. So as always, the goal is to maximize revenue and minimize cost. In the past, we've had only supervisors and above do this, and everyone has their own way of doing it. They have their own process, their own measurements, their own costs. So we've decided last year to standardize the process. So the goal was to create automatic tools. We were going to put manufacturers on a regular cadence, and we were going to identify sourcing opportunities where there are lanes where we didn't make as much money as we thought we could, or lanes where the volume fluctuated enough that sometimes we would have to pay extra money by doing one-off rates. We failed. Clearly, we did not hit our budget numbers. So what happened was we had a lack of alignment from the onset. So not everybody understood what the vision was in the end. We also didn't ask for input, so people didn't buy in. There's poor communication throughout. People didn't know what was expected of them, nor did they know where we were in the progress. So then because of staff changes and market changes and other things that happened, there was actual direction changes with the CPU process that were either not communicated or were not communicated well. Plus, the people, because there's multiple people involved, there was multiple tools that were created, and they were all redundant to some extent, but all tools had to be filled in. So it made the process very cumbersome. In the end, it became a blame game when we didn't meet our margin expectations. And so we've decided we need to have a better strategy. And to do that, we did some research. And so now Julia and Talicia are going to tell us a little bit about engagement.
So engaging employees from the beginning of a strategic planning process increases alignment throughout the entire organization. Execution is really difficult when employees don't understand the full vision. They can't be expected to problem solve if they don't know the ins and outs of the process. Research has shown that employee engagement acts beneficially toward the financial performance and the overall longevity of an organization. So it is worthwhile for an organization to invest in this aspect of engaging their employees. If leaders want their employees to feel engaged in the organization, there are a couple things that they need to understand. The first is that employees are more engaged when they perceive the leader to be authentic and transparent in their decision making. So it's really important that leaders are, being open with their decision making, that they're involving employees in that process, and that they're, walking the walk and not keeping anything from employees. The more the employees trust the leader, the more likely they are to align with the strategy. The second thing for leaders to remember is that they need to value their employees as human beings. So employees desire to be accepted, respected, and included in the organizational decision-making process. There are a couple ways that leaders can engage their employees. The first is to meet regularly to plan strategy, and the second is to break down goals into quarterly objectives. Doing this will make the goals more obtainable and will make employees feel more on board with the process and not be overwhelmed by the implementation of this new strategy. There are 4 practical actions that leaders can take to keep their employees engaged throughout the whole process. So the first, the leaders need to focus on rewards and recognition. They need to empower their employees by providing them with meaningful work where they feel like they're really making a difference and that they really have a role in the organization. And they need to build a bond between leadership and the employees at every level. The second thing they need to do is employ effective employee engagement strategies in order to sustain profitability of the organization. They need to understand the relationship between employee engagement and organizational profitability overall, and they should conduct quarterly employee surveys to better understand the employees' expectation trends over time and make sure that everything is trending in the right direction. Now I'm going to hand it over to Talicia, and she's going to talk about the importance of engaging middle managers.
When it pertains to middle management and implementing strategy, they play a key role being the go-to person for upper management and the lower level. They act as a source of knowledge for senior management to formulate and develop strategies, in addition to being vital in selling high-level strategic plans and organization to lower levels within the organization, relaying the information in a way that the working level employees can understand. It is also very important that middle management have a motivating driving force when it comes to strategy implementation projects. This is why it is a critical key that the middle manager understand and believe in the change process to make it successful. When top leaders adopt a participative management style toward middle management, there is a positive correlation in reference to the implementation results. Also, managing the implementation risk, it plays a factor with regard to the cooperation condition, having the ability to distinguish between process and behavior issues with strategy implementation. Now let's go to Frank to talk about executing strategy.
Thank you, Delicia. So, yeah, it goes beyond engagement, right? We certainly know the importance of engaging, and we've learned the importance of engaging our middle managers. But what do we do, and how do we actually do that? And we've done some research and looked at different ways, and there are certainly many different models that you could use to do that. We're going to go through a couple. One specifically that we found to be really useful for the situation we have with JTB. So strategy mapping. This builds off of the Kaplan and Norton work on balanced scorecards. And it's really about creating a clear line between individuals' efforts and the organizational strategy. It's a good cause and effect illustration of organizational strategy. Again, building off of the balanced scorecard, which includes financial, customer, internal, and growth being the metrics. But we found strategy mapping good, but we didn't think it was the ideal model for our situation. So we went on and we went to use the 8 S's of successful strategy execution. So we're going to go to quickly give a sort of a brief overview of what each of these S's mean and how they apply to our situation. So first we have strategy, right? We know we're going in, the strategy is about growth. We know that we are building that off of cost, and ideally we want to increase CPO revenues by minimizing costs and increasing margins. There are different strategies you can use. There's corporate, business, functional, and process, and we're going to use process, which is about integrating our organizational processes with to make them more effective and efficient. The second is about structure. This is about the jobs, the authority of jobs, the span of control, the mechanisms of coordination. In this case, we flattened the organization. We wanted to empower middle managers and frontline supervisors to be able to make the decisions they need to be able to effectively execute our strategy. Next, we have systems and processes. These are the things that allow our employees to get the job done day to day, right? This could be quality control systems, financial or strategic planning, capital budgeting systems. For JTB, it was really about coming up with a performance management system and an information system that allows people to communicate information with each other quickly, efficiently, and utilize each other to be able to effectively reduce margins and increase prices. Next, we have style, right? This goes back a little bit to the engagement and something that really went wrong the first time. The leadership style. We want to empower, as we said. We want to empower middle and frontline levels, conduct employee engagement surveys, work unit meetings, and make sure that our style aligns and not a top-down authoritative command and control style, but more one that brings people in and gives them the power to make the decisions they need to on the front lines. Next, we have staff. So starting with determining the number and types of employees that we need and assessing what we currently have and seeing where the gaps are. Do we have the talent that we need and the competencies to be able to execute on this strategy? The next S stands for resources. So this is about the technology. Do we have the technology? Do we have the capital? Do we have staff? And what do we need to put in place to make sure? So it's certainly going to be important for us to make investments in our people and our technology, and by people also including training for those people. Next, we have shared values, and this really ties into organizational culture. What is it about what values are shared in the organization that differentiates us from other organizations? JTB, it's really important that we embrace a culture of accountability and collaboration. Accountable to the numbers, the KPIs that are determined, but also collaboration. So we communicate across lines and people are on the same page and utilizing each other to most effectively execute the strategy. And the last is strategic performance, and this was an added S. So some of you may be familiar with this actually as the 7S framework, like the McKinsey, but this is the 8th, and it's about strategic performance. The balance scorecard ties into this. It's about measuring the right things. We want to increase CPU. We want to do that by minimizing costs and increasing margins, but make sure that also flows down to people day to day. Are we measuring the things that they could look at? It's one thing to have an organizational measurement, but it's another to align people's jobs and their day to day with that overall strategy and those objectives. As they say, what gets measured gets done, and we certainly recognize that that's an area we failed to do first time around.
So thanks, Frank. So now that we know how we want to execute our strategy, let's see how it works. So we have a plan, and the plan is to make sure that we empower the team to steer the process, that we create specialized positions to gain focus, that we streamline to have one tool to analyze, update, and record information. We allow team members with the affinity for the process to partake. So we're not going to limit this to just supervisors and above. If there's people who want to and are passionate about doing this, they should definitely be invited to partake. And we need to make sure that the team knows that they're supported in executing, which means not only are we going to help them get around obstacles, but we're also going to reward them and make sure they understand that we appreciate all of their efforts. And we're also going to create achievable KPIs to monitor. The key word here being achievable. So we've already gone through and we've won their hearts and their minds by acknowledging that we've done this incorrectly in the past and we've solicited their input. So what we want to do is we want to review all of our major manufacturers for profitability during this fiscal year. We want to start with what worked, so that feedback that we took from them. We want to make sure we address the gaps that they brought to our attention. We also want to make sure that this year that we're agile and that we adapt to the process in real time based on the real-time influences, and that we're not behind the market like we were last year. And in order to do this, we're going to have to communicate. So I'm going to go through as a strategy steward and convey this strategy to my strategy leaders, my frontline strategists, and my non-managerial employees. So as we go through this with Frank, Julia, and Talicia, pay attention to some of the things that we just talked about and the 8 S's and how you see them manifest during the conversations. Okay. Hey, Frank, you got a minute?
I do.
Hey, so, we talked a lot about strategy. I know that we've kind of over-talked this strategy on the CPU allowance stuff. Everybody's been hearing about it for a while now. So we're ready to kind of make our move. And so our strategy in the coming year is going to make sure that we have people in place. So we've taken a couple of people who have said they want to do this, and that's going to be their primary responsibility. They're going to be responsible for aligning everyone, creating the tools and the KPIs. They're also going to make sure that if we need to make changes, that they're being communicated out in an appropriate manner. Any questions about that?
No, it's good to hear. It's certainly, I think that's good to have a conduit as something to help people feel heard and get the message across. So I'm happy to hear that. Yeah.
Fantastic. So we know that we have to change because, well, frankly, if we don't change, we will be in a worse spot than we are this year, and that's not acceptable. So what I really need from you, though, is I really need you to go make sure everyone's aligned and that everyone understands that the communication is going to be 2 ways, right? We're not just going to dictate down to them this year. We really need them to speak back up to us, and we need to make sure that we're addressing their concerns.
Any thoughts or ideas for I guess just how to do that, maybe from your experience? I mean, the one thing I think we talked about before were those work unit meetings that you shared, which you said you had a lot of success with, and sound like a great idea. I had talked with some of the other managers. We were talking about some of the being able to do that, including people in that. Any other thoughts or suggestions for the communication part of it?
So I'll support you in whatever you decide. My only criteria is that it has to be in a regular cadence, and we have to make sure that we over-communicate, right? So in the past, people have felt like we've under-communicated. I want to make sure no one feels that way this year. So whether you do breakout workouts or if you have monthly meetings or however you want to do this, I support you in your decision.
Wonderful. The only other question, a little less related to communication, but in general, just a couple of things. I know we talked about systems before and potentially getting something in place to where it's people aren't doing it on their own and coming up with, like we saw last year, different ways. Oh, I spoke with this vendor and they have their own process. Anything, any movement on that or traction on that with getting a system in place for?
So I want to make sure we're talking the same thing. So system, not in the context of a actual system like Word or Excel, probably not. But we do have these 2 gentlemen who are going to take over the process, and they're going to figure out what the standards should be. So what is the standard process for reviewing? What are the KPIs we should be held to? All of that information, anything that can be standardized, that makes sense to be standardized, they're going to make sure it gets done, and then everybody's aware of what those expectations are.
Okay, good start. Lastly, is on the staff side. So adding these 2 people is huge. What about? I just have some concerns with some people that I'm not sure they have the skills, and can we provide any kind of training or anything that you think?
Yeah, so we can certainly do that. If we feel that there's a need to do a large level training, let me know and we can arrange that. However, I have a feeling that it'll be more of a one-off training because everybody is at different levels. It doesn't make sense to come in and teach someone how to print open save, right, if they already have mastered that. But if we can make sure that these 2 gentlemen who are implementing the process are aware of this, and they can schedule one-on-ones with them if they feel the need.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to working with them, and I appreciate you keeping me in the loop.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate everything that you do. Like I said, I just really need to make sure that the communication is 2-way and that we're aligned. So if you want to draw up your plans for that, that'd be great.
Yep, will do.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, Julia, I got something I want to talk to you about. Do you have a few minutes?
Yeah, sure. What can I help you with?
So you're aware that, the CPU process is broken, and we've been soliciting input and feedback on how do we make it better going forward. So I just wanted to share with you that we're ready to kind of pull the trigger, and we have a new strategy outlined. And so what we're going to do is we're going to allocate a couple of people whose primary job is going to be to focus on this. Mm-hmm. And what they're going to do is create KPIs, standardize the process. They're going to communicate everything out. They're going to be our one-stop shop if there's any sort of questions or concerns. Any questions about that?
Yeah, so I guess the one thing that, I'm wondering is, the biggest thing I feel like we faced in the past is we've communicated out, maybe indirectly what the employees need to do, but then there was never really anything to hold them accountable. So with the KPIs, I think that's great. Now there will be something to, make sure that they're following the process. Is that something that's going to be, a metric on their performance review? Like, to what level are we going to have some kind of leverage to make sure we're motivating them to actually follow the process so that we don't have the same problem before where they just disregard it?
Yeah, so quite honestly, we all have to hold each other accountable, right? So the coordinators are going to be the ones with the KPIs. They're going to be the ones expected to execute the work. However, if we're not helping and supporting them and achieving that, then we're failing them. So we need to make sure that we're all aligned on what needs to be done and how it needs to be done, which is kind of where you come in, right? So I need you to make sure you work closely with Frank and make sure that the communication is coming up from the coordinators, is making it to him and to that team of 2 that is going to be overseeing this. We really need to make sure that the coordinators understand that the measurement isn't a slap on the wrist or a way to say, you're not doing well. We can certainly talk about it in the sense of it being a reward and do some rewards and recognition around that. I'd be open. You just let me know what they think and what they feel about how to get that done.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's great. I think, honestly, to make this successful, I think what we have to do is really involve them. I think if the, 2 gentlemen in charge of coming up with the KPIs, maybe, what we could do is put together a meeting where we review that with maybe, a focus group of the coordinators and see what they think about the KPIs, make sure they're feel comfortable about them, if they are things they'll be, rewarded for or rated on. And then from there, like you said, I think communication is going to be key, just making sure everyone is fully aware of what they're responsible for, what they're going to be rated on, and what the rewards look like. So yeah, I think it's great that we're looking to involve the coordinators this time around. I think that'll be awesome.
Great. So just to recap, what I really need from you is I really need to make sure that we're enforcing the expectations and that you're holding everyone accountable across the board. I know that could sometimes put you in an uncomfortable spot, but know that we're all going to be held to the same standards. And just make sure we communicate, right? So 2 ways, up and down.
Yeah, no, I have no problem, holding the employees accountable to that. And it's great to hear that we have support from upper management. I think in the past, it's been a little bit difficult to hold employees accountable if they can kind of go around you and complain to upper management. But I think if we're all aligned and all on the same page, that'll be easy. And, I'm more than happy to help out in the process.
Perfect. Thank you. And again, questions, let me know.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks. Hey, Talicia, can I steal 5 minutes of your time?
Sure. What's going on?
So I know you're really busy, so I'm just going to keep this really brief. And I just wanted to share with you that we took in all the feedback and the input that you guys gave us about the CPU process and what was wrong with it. So what we've decided to do this year is we have a couple of people who are going to be responsible for aligning and creating processes, and they're going to communicate. So really what they're going to help you guys with is they're going to help you with some KPIs that are going to help you figure out if we're doing the right work. Any questions about that?
Yeah, I mean, we've gone down this road before. What's changed this time around? The plans that are set in place are never clear. Can we develop a clear line of communication and reward incentive for those who stick to the plan? And will this be a part of our employee evaluation as well?
So the communication is going to be through these teams. This team of 2, they should be the ones that you can go ask any questions of, and they should be able to give you the right answer. So hopefully that will streamline the communication and create that alignment that you're looking for. It also helps us stay transparent, right? So they are going to be the end all be all of the process, and they have full empowerment to do what they see fit. So if you want to bring your concerns to them, they can make those changes as needed. And we have actually talked about doing rewards and recognition. So the KPIs that they create, you guys are welcome to have that input into what they're actually measuring you on, and then how you want to be rewarded. But we will definitely look into doing that. And yes, they will be part of your performance management at the end of the year.
Okay, well, I'm positive about the new process. If anyone has any issues, I would definitely direct my peers to speak with upper management, as well as speaking to everyone about the types of rewards that will motivate them to execute the new plans that are set into place. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. We definitely cannot do this without you, and I appreciate your help.
No problem.
Okay, so now that we've seen how this looks in real life, Talicia is going to go through the takeaways.
All right. So a few key takeaways is executing strategy that does not work. If there's a lack of communication across functions and organization borders, communication is important. And when it comes to executing strategy, it is important to utilize middle management due to the importance of their role. They have the knowledge of senior management, developing and formulating a strategy to implement, and the ability to explain the high level strategies to lower levels who execute and engage. Engagement is key, not only in creating strategy, but in execution. Employees need to feel empowered and heard. Employees respond to authentic and transparent leadership. And lastly, have a process in place for feedback. Have a nimble strategy that can adapt to this feedback. If you are interested, here are a few of our references following a few questions to think about. Thank you for watching our presentation, and I hope you all enjoyed.